Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It was just past sunset when the knocking started. Not loud, not desperate at first. Just a soft, uneven tapping on the heavy wooden door of the old ranch house. Like whoever stood outside wasn't sure they should even be there. The rancher, Samuel Grayson, was rinsing dirt from his hands at the sink. The smell of hay and engine oil still clinging to him after a long day mending fences. He lived miles from the nearest town. The kind of place where silence settled in thick layers once the sun dipped below the hills. The knocking came again. This time, a little faster. Samuel frowned. Nobody ever came out this far unless they were lost, or broken down, or looking for trouble. He dried his hands slowly, listening. A third knock followed, weak, almost swallowed by the wind. He opened the door. Standing on the porch was a little girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old. She was barefoot, her feet red and dirty, her dress torn at the hem. Her hair was tangled, sticking to her cheeks with dried tears. One eye was already swelling shut, and there was a thin line of blood running from her nose down to her lip. Before Samuel could say a word, she looked up at him with eyes far too old for her face and said in a shaking voice, "They beat my mama. She's dying." For a moment, the world went quiet. Samuel's mind raced, but his body moved first. He knelt down so he was eye level with her, his voice steady, even though his chest felt tight. He asked her name. She whispered, "Lily." He asked where her mother was. She pointed back toward the dirt road that disappeared into the dark hills and said, "At the trailer. They're still there." Samuel didn't ask who they were. He didn't ask questions that wasted time. He grabbed his jacket, scooped Lily up gently, despite how stiff and scared she felt, and carried her inside. He set her on a chair, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and handed her a glass of water. Her hands shook so badly he had to help her hold it. He told her to stay right there. He told her she was safe. Then he reached for the phone. The sheriff's station was 30 miles away, and response times out here were slow on a good day. Samuel knew that. Still, he called. He gave the dispatcher the location Lily described, his voice low and urgent. When he hung up, he didn't wait. He locked the front door, handed Lily a flashlight, and told her not to open the door for anyone. Then he went to the back room, opened the old gun cabinet, and took out his truck keys instead. He chose the keys first. The engine roared to life, headlights cutting through the dark as Samuel sped down the dirt road Lily had pointed toward. Dust kicked up behind him as the ranch faded into the distance. Every bump in the road felt like it stole another second from someone who didn't have many left. The trailer sat crooked in a clearing, one side sagging like it had given up holding itself together. A single porch light flickered. Samuel slowed as he approached, killing the headlights a short distance away. He could hear shouting before he even got out of the truck. Slurred voices, angry laughter. Samuel stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. 2 men were on the porch. One held a bottle, the other was pacing, yelling toward the inside of the trailer. The door was dented inward, fresh damage obvious even in the dim light. Samuel raised his voice, calm but carrying. He told them to step away. He told them help was coming. He told them they needed to leave. They laughed at him. One of them took a step forward, swaying, and told Samuel to mind his own business. That's when Samuel noticed the blood on the porch boards, dark and sticky. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't threaten. He simply planted his feet and repeated himself. Louder this time. Something in his voice must have cut through the alcohol and anger, because the men hesitated. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, still far off but coming. The second man cursed under his breath and grabbed the first by the arm. They stumbled off the porch, disappearing into the trees as the sound of law closing in grew louder. Samuel didn't chase them. He rushed into the trailer. The inside was worse than he imagined. Furniture overturned, broken glass everywhere. And on the floor near the back room lay a woman, barely conscious, her face swollen and bruised. One arm bent at an angle that made Samuel's stomach turn. He knelt beside her, speaking softly, telling her help was on the way. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second, panic flashing in them until she whispered, "Lily." Samuel swallowed and told her Lily was safe. When the deputies and paramedics finally arrived, the clearing exploded with light and noise. They took over quickly, loading the woman onto a stretcher, asking Samuel questions, scanning the woods for the men who had run. Samuel gave his statement, then watched as the ambulance disappeared down the road with sirens screaming. Only then did the weight of the night crash down on him. He drove back to the ranch in silence. Lily was still sitting in the chair where he left her, blanket wrapped tight, eyes wide. She ran to him the moment he stepped inside, wrapping her arms around his waist. Samuel froze for half a second, then rested a hand gently on her back. He told her her mom was alive. He told her doctors were helping her. Lily nodded, but she didn't cry. She looked exhausted beyond her years. Samuel made her a simple meal, something warm. He found clean clothes that were too big but soft, and set up the guest room. He stayed awake in a chair outside her door until her breathing finally evened out and sleep claimed her. The next morning brought more questions. The sheriff came by with updates. The men had been identified. Arrests were being made. Lily's mother, Maria, was in critical condition but stable. She'd survived the night. Child services arrived too. polite but firm. They asked about Lily, about what happened, about Samuel. He answered everything honestly. He didn't fight them. He didn't argue. He just asked one thing. He asked to keep Lily with him until her mother recovered. The request raised eyebrows. Single rancher, no family nearby. But Samuel's house was clean, his record spotless, and Lily clung to him whenever anyone else got too close. After some discussion, and given the circumstances, they agreed to temporary placement. Days turned into weeks. Samuel learned quickly how to braid hair badly but with effort, how to pack lunches, how to listen when Lily talked about her mom in the hospital, about the noises that still scared her at night. He learned that Lily loved horses but was afraid of loud voices. He learned she slept better when the hallway light was on. The ranch changed. The silence wasn't as heavy anymore. There were drawings taped to the fridge, small shoes by the door, laughter echoing across the fields sometimes, light and unexpected. Samuel visited Maria in the hospital when Lily was ready. Maria cried when she saw her daughter, then cried harder when she realized where Lily had been staying. She thanked Samuel over and over, her voice breaking. Samuel just nodded, uncomfortable with praise. When Maria was finally discharged, reality hit hard. She had nowhere safe to go. The trailer was condemned. The men who hurt her had left scars that went deeper than broken bones. Samuel didn't hesitate. He offered her the spare room. People talked. They always do, in small towns, but Samuel didn't care. He saw how Maria struggled to trust, how Lily stuck close to her side but also reached for Samuel's hand without thinking. Healing was slow. There were setbacks. Nights when Lily woke screaming. Days when Maria shut down completely. Samuel stayed steady through all of it. Not because he was a hero, because sometimes doing the right thing is just doing the next thing that needs to be done. Months later, the trial ended. The men were sentenced. Justice, as much as it ever is. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, Lily sat on the porch steps beside Samuel. She leaned her head against his arm and said, "You open the door." Samuel looked down at her, confused. She smiled, small but sure. "If you didn't open the door, my mama would be gone." Samuel didn't have an answer for that. His throat tightened, and he just nodded, staring out at the land he'd worked his whole life. Word spread beyond the town. People talked about the rancher who saved a woman and her child. Some called him brave. Some called him a miracle. Samuel called it a knock. A quiet knock on an ordinary evening that changed everything. And if there's one thing this story reminds us of, it's this. Sometimes the moment that defines who we are doesn't come with warning or applause. Sometimes it comes as a frightened child on your doorstep, asking for help. The question is never whether the world is cruel enough to need kindness. It's whether we're willing to open the door when it knocks.